Okay, let's have a look at work solution for our homework task. So we're going to be using the flowchart symbols and diagrams to help show our algorithmic thinking. Now the task requires us to demonstrate our understanding by building a flowchart for a student in geography class is asked you to calculate their score as a percentage. Now we're going to be using some symbols. So the very first symbol we need is actually the start. So we start with an oval and just put start. Now to process this, we need to look at some of the information. So I'm just grabbing a highlighter. So for a test mark, we need the test mark they got. We also need the total mark for the test. And from those two inputs, we can then start generating the output. So we start with the start bubble, and the next thing we need to do is get some information from the user. Now we need the input, which is the test mark. So let's go input, test mark. That allows us to get the test mark from the user. Notice it's the slanty box, so that is an input and an output box. Once we've got the test mark, the next thing we need to get is actually the total test mark. And that's also going to be an input. So remember to put input in. And it's going to be a slopey box again. Mind you, I suggest that you use a ruler. I'm not using a ruler, so therefore it's a little bit messy. And you notice that I actually write it first and then I draw the box around it. That's probably the best way. Now, once I've got those two pieces of information, I can then start processing to work out the answer. So to process this, we're going to use a square box, which is our processing box. And therefore I'm going to change to purple just so it's a different color. And to get that, we can get result is equal to test mark divided by test total times 100. Now you notice I've written it like a mathematical equation rather than a linear equation. When we program it, it needs to be flat like a linear equation up here. Because we're working in pseudocode, it is okay to actually write it as a maths equation. Now, once we've worked that out, we can then do an if statement. So an if statement then is a diamond, which allows us to have a decision. Now, I've drawn this fairly big. Now, notice I haven't written it first. Normally, you write it and then draw this diagram, but it's good to do this. And the idea was, well, if the result is greater than equal to 55%, they've passed, else they need to work harder. So you can actually put the if there. So you can go if result is greater than and equal to 55%. I'm just going to close the triangle off. So that's our if symbol. Doesn't look the best, so I'm just going to grab the eraser and just delete those out because it looks messy. And then we're just going to draw it in again, and hopefully it looks a little neater. No, still not good. So now we've got an if part. Now with this, we've got a true and a false branch. So this is true, and this one's going to be false. Now, if it is true, we want to output to the user. So once again, I'm going to grab the grey one, and we know it's a slopey box because input and output is that. Now, if we want to output this, we can go display. We can put it in quotes if you want. You passed. Okay, and that's going to be a slopey box. Whoops, now I've got a vector line going on. That would have been handy earlier. Oh, wrong box shape. Go back. Draw it as a box shape. And then if they didn't get over 55, you need to work harder. You need to work harder. Okay, and that's also going to be a slanty box like that. And we also need to go print or display. And then once that's been done, we can then go down to the very last symbol, which is going to be our stop, which is the end of our algorithm. So there's our solution on screen. We have a start and a stop. We've got inputs. We've got outputs. we've got some processing, we have a decision. So I hope that helps you work through a solution and you've got a better understanding of how to apply flowcharts to show your algorithmic thinking.